Karen spat at a waitress. Yes. She actually leaned forward. Lips curled and spit right at the poor girl because her pasta came out with parsley instead of basil. In that split second, the whole restaurant froze. Forks stopped midair. Chairs creaked as people turned and the air went sharp and brittle like glass about to crack. I swear, you could almost hear hearts drop. Who does that? Over a garnish. The waitress, Maya, stood there trembling. Her notepad pressed tight to her chest. She was only 19. First semester at the local college. Saving every tip for tuition. And now she had spit dripping off her cheek. Catching the fluorescent light. She whispered, "Ma'am, please." But Karen cut her off with that booming voice. The kind that makes the whole room shrink. "Oh, don't play innocent." Karen barked. "This is unacceptable. I asked for basil. Not weeds." "Weeds." She called parsley weeds. People shifted uncomfortably, muttering under their breath. The couple at the corner booth shook their heads. A kid 2 tables over gasped loud enough for everyone to hear. And me. I sat at the bar, fists clenching around my beer glass, biting back the urge to say something. But Maya, God bless her, she just swallowed hard and said, "I can have the kitchen remake it." "No," Karen snapped, slamming the table so hard the silverware jumped. "You don't get it. You've ruined my night. You've ruined everything." Her voice cracked with theatrical rage. She shoved the plate aside. Sauce splattering onto the white tablecloth and the whole restaurant held its breath again. Then it happened. Karen stood, leaned forward and spit at Maya again. This time, silence didn't last long. Gasps erupted. Phones came out. Recording lights flicked on. A man muttered, "That's assault." Under his breath. Someone else whispered, "She's done." And Maya, the poor girl, her lower lip trembled. But then something shifted. Her eyes hardened. Just for a second. She pulled herself straighter, wiped her cheek with the back of her hand and whispered, "You'll regret that." I swear. Chills ran down my spine. Karen laughed. A sharp, ugly laugh that echoed in the quiet restaurant. "What are you gonna do, sweetheart? Call your manager. Call mommy." Oh, Karen. If only she knew what was about to unfold. The manager rushed over, red-faced and shaking. "Ma'am, you need to leave right now." Karen sneered. "Don't tell me what to do. I pay good money here." At that exact second, the bell above the door jingled. 2 police officers stepped inside, scanning the room. You could feel the atmosphere shift, like thunder rolling in. Someone had already called 911. Karen froze, her mouth hanging open mid-insult. The officers approached, calm but firm. "We received a call about an assault." One said, "Ma'am, step aside." Karen's face turned a blotchy red. She stammered, "Assault. Don't be ridiculous. I'm the victim here." The younger officer, a tall woman with her hair tied back in a strict bun, asked flatly, "You spit on this waitress?" Karen scoffed. "It's just spit. That's not a crime." The officer's eyebrow shot up. "Actually, ma'am, spitting on someone is battery under state law." The room buzzed with murmurs. Someone at the back clapped. A single sharp sound. Phones were recording everything. Karen looked around desperately, realizing the entire restaurant had turned against her. She tried to pivot. "This girl botched my order. Humiliated me." But Maya, sweet, quiet Maya, finally found her voice. She lifted her chin, her voice trembling but clear. "You spat on me twice. Everyone here saw it." And that was it. The truth hung heavy in the air. Karen's bravado crumbled. "No, no, no," she hissed. "You don't understand who I am. I'm on the Homeowners Association board. I run this neighborhood. People respect me." The irony. You could practically hear the collective eye roll. Someone near me muttered, "Classic Karen." The officer pulled out handcuffs. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault." The clink of metal echoed like a gunshot. Karen shrieked, stumbling back. "You can't arrest me. This is insane." "Yes, we can," the officer replied. The whole restaurant burst into whispers, laughter, even a few cheers. Maya exhaled shakily, tears threatening her eyes but mixed with something new. Relief. Vindication. As Karen was turned and cuffed, she kept thrashing, spitting words this time instead of saliva. "You're all against me. You're jealous. This whole town is pathetic." But her words bounced off dead air. Nobody cared anymore. And then, here's the twist nobody saw coming. The older officer turned to Maya. His voice softened. "You okay, miss?" Maya nodded, still trembling. And that's when he added quietly, "You're pressing charges, right?" The room gasped again. Charges. Real consequences. Karen's eyes widened like she'd finally woken up from her delusion. "No, she won't press charges. She can't," Karen yelled, her voice cracking. Maya took a long, shaky breath. You could almost see the battle inside her. Fear, anger, shame. Then she lifted her chin higher and whispered, "Yes, I want to press charges." Boom. Just like that. The final nail in the coffin. The restaurant applauded. Some people actually stood. Karen screamed, kicking at the floor. But the officers held her steady and dragged her out as the bell jingled again. And then silence returned, broken only by the faint sizzle of food from the kitchen. Maya stood there, pale but glowing, as strangers approached to pat her shoulder, to slip her cash, to say, "Good for you." Me. I walked up and said, "You were brave tonight." She smiled weakly. I had to. People like her get away with it too often." The door closed behind Karen. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance and the whole room seemed lighter. But oh, the internet wasn't going to let this die quietly. By morning, the video was everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. The headline screamed, "Homeowners Association Karen spits on Waitress. Gets arrested on the spot." And guess what? That smug Homeowners Association board she bragged about. They held an emergency meeting 2 days later. The footage embarrassed the entire neighborhood. They voted to strip her from her position. The final straw. Karen's own husband filed for separation. Embarrassed beyond repair. The woman who claimed "everyone respects me" ended up with no Homeowners Association power. No husband. No reputation. Only a court date and a permanent nickname. Spitgate. As for Maya, the community rallied behind her. Donations poured in to cover tuition. She even got offered a better job at a local bakery. One that promised she'd never have to deal with monsters like Karen again. And every now and then, I think back to that moment when Maya wiped her cheek and whispered, "You'll regret that." She was right. Karen regretted it more than she could ever imagine. Was it karma, justice, or just plain stupidity? Either way, thank you for watching this story play out, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more wild real-life dramas. It all started with a dry clunk, that hollow sound of metal echoing from the backyard faucet as I tried to hose down the patio. And nothing came out. No water, not even a drip. My stomach sank, and in the back of my mind, I already knew who was behind this. Karen. That woman had made our lives a bureaucratic hell ever since she became president of the Willow Springs HOA, and when I say president, I mean self-appointed dictator. The kind who measures your grass, fines you if your welcome mat isn't HOA-approved beige, and God forbid you park a red car in your driveway. But this, shutting down the entire water tower, that was new. That was insane. I jogged toward the cul-de-sac, where a few neighbors had already gathered with confused looks and drooping garden hoses. Old Mr. Blevins, who never talks to anyone unless it's about the Vietnam War or his cat, was actually shouting. She what? She drained it? Are you kidding me? Yeah. No joke. Apparently, Karen had ordered the emergency draining of the neighborhood water tower for maintenance. She claimed without notifying the city, the fire department, or, any of us. The twist? She wanted to repaint the base to match the new HOA-approved color palette. Rustic Coastal Dawn. Whatever the hell that is. I don't care if it's eggshell white or unicorn puke. My neighbor Layla spat. Her arms crossed, sweat glistening on her forehead. We don't have water. In July. During wildfire season. Exactly. Then the sirens started. It was surreal watching a fleet of fire trucks speed past our dry lawns, kicking up clouds of dust. A hillside brush fire had sparked just 3 blocks over, and the nearest hydrants were bone dry thanks to Karen's little power trip. I ran. So did a bunch of us, barefoot or in slippers, chasing after the trucks toward the smoke. And sure enough, as the firemen jumped out, yanked open the hydrants, and twisted the valves, nothing. Just that same hollow clunk. Where's the damn water? A fire chief barked into his radio. Karen showed up moments later in her spotless Lexus, stepping out with her HOA clipboard like she'd arrived for afternoon tea. She adjusted her giant sun hat and actually smiled. Oh, hello. I was just checking the progress on the repainting. You drained the tower? The fire captain shouted, eyes wide. Her expression shifted just slightly. The corners of her mouth tightened. Well, it's not my fault the city didn't coordinate with. We had to call in emergency tankers because of you. He gestured wildly toward the rising smoke, toward the fire already licking the edge of someone's fence. I swear to God, Karen had the audacity to roll her eyes. Don't be dramatic. I almost lunged at her right there. You endangered lives, Karen, I shouted. My kid's school is 5 blocks from that hill. Oh, please, she said, waving her hand. The fire's being handled. It's under control. And then boom, a propane tank exploded in someone's backyard. Screams. We all ducked. Glass shattered somewhere in the distance. Karen dropped her clipboard. It was the only moment she looked human. The fire crew sprang into action with backup tankers arriving just in time, unleashing pressurized water through huge hoses, spraying foam and containment lines. Still, the damage was done. For homes were scorched, 2 completely gutted. An elderly couple had to be airlifted because the smoke got into their lungs. And Karen? She tried to leave. Not even kidding. She slipped back toward her Lexus, heels clicking across the asphalt, fumbling for her keys like no one would notice. But by that point, the cops had arrived. Ma'am, we need to speak with you. She tried her usual weaponized charm. I'm the HOA president, and I've been very cooperative. Ma'am, step away from the vehicle. God, the satisfaction I felt in that moment. I'm not proud of it, but damn, it was cathartic watching her face go pale. Her voice rise in pitch, trying to blame us, blame the city, blame the fire department for not informing her that her maintenance schedule wasn't allowed. No one told me it was wildfire season, she shrieked. You live in Southern California, someone screamed back. They took her in for questioning. And while she wasn't arrested that day, the investigation moved fast. Turns out Karen had hired her nephew, some unlicensed contractor, do the draining and repainting for half the city's quoted price. He had no clue what he was doing. Shut down the water flow without filing a single permit. And here's the twist no one saw coming. When the city checked the HOA's funds, it turned out Karen had also funneled over $80,000 in administrative expenses into a private account. Stolen HOA dues. Our dues. I swear. When the news broke, it felt like the whole neighborhood let out a collective gasp. Like someone lifted a 10-year weight off our shoulders. The very next week, we held an emergency HOA meeting without her. Voted in a new board. Froze the HOA account. Worked with the city to restore the water supply. We even gave the fire department an honorary barbecue in the park to say thank you. Karen? Well, her house went up for sale. Quietly. No open house. No godbis. Just one day, a moving truck showed up, and she was gone. But here's the kicker, and I'm still not sure if it was karma or just plain irony. 2 weeks after she moved out, another fire sparked from a faulty electric scooter left charging on a porch. Just a small one, quickly contained. But that time, the hydrants worked. The tower was full. And the house that caught fire? It was Karen's old place. The new owners got out safely, thank God. Minor damage, thanks to the quick response. But I can't help but think if Karen had still been there, if she'd still had control, what would have happened? Sometimes it takes fire to cleanse a neighborhood. Sometimes it takes one woman's arrogance to light the match. And sometimes you get to watch karma arrive in a red truck with sirens blazing. Would you believe, after everything, she actually tried to sue the HOA for emotional distress? Claimed we ruined her reputation? Let's just say that case didn't go far. And neither did she. The lawsuit fizzled out like wet fireworks. Karen had no leg to stand on, no credible defense, no moral high ground, and certainly no sympathy from a jury of her peers, most of whom had once received threatening violation letters over things as stupid as non-regulation bird feeders or overly decorative wind chimes. The judge dismissed it within minutes. She didn't even look up from the bench when she banged the gavel. What came next was oddly quiet. No apology. No statement. Karen just disappeared. Moved somewhere upstate, I heard, into a gated community, ironically. And while part of me hoped she'd learned something, maybe softened, maybe started a new life free from control and HOA politics, another part of me doubted it. People like her don't really change. But we did. Without her breathing down our necks, the neighborhood started to heal. We painted our houses whatever damn color we wanted. Kids could play in the cul-de-sac without someone reporting excessive noise. We even turned the old HOA office, previously a fortress of passive-aggressive memos, into a little free library. The best part? We installed an emergency alert system and partnered with the fire department for future safety drills. No more surprises. No more drain towers. Sometimes, when I'm out on the porch sipping coffee and listening to the distant hum of working sprinklers, I think back to that July day. To the way the fire glowed behind the hills. The smoke. The panic. The rage in everyone's voice. And then I think of Karen's face as her Lexus was boxed in by those fire trucks. As the sirens screamed past her perfectly manicured shrubs. Poetic justice. But justice doesn't always come the way you think it will. It doesn't always wear a badge or swing a gavel. Sometimes, it arrives in the form of a community finally saying, enough. And if Karen ever tries to file another lawsuit against this neighborhood, the fire department, hell, even the city, she better be ready. We're organized now. We're united. And we know the rules better than she ever did. We learned from her. So, Karen, wherever you are, if you're watching this, just know we've got the hoses ready. And the hydrants full. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more wild real-life HOA dramas, lawsuits, and stories where karma pulls up in a fire truck. You ever have someone show up to your land and try to evict you? That's what happened to me when the HOA came knocking, demanding I sell my flower ranch. Yeah, my peaceful, lavender-scented, butterfly-filled ranch that I've been building for a decade. Their reason? It clashes with the community aesthetic. But here's the twist. They didn't know I own the entire subdivision their little HOA pretends to govern. It started with a knock. Not the polite no, this was that entitled three-knuckle I own your soul kind of knock. I opened the gate to find this woman in a power suit that screamed fake authority and a clipboard so thick it looked like she was preparing for war. Mr. Callahan, she chirped. We're here on behalf of the Willow Heights Homeowners Association. Her name was Marcy.
HOA president.
Of course it was. She didn't ask if she could come in, just started talking, stepping onto my land like it was hers. I was standing barefoot in the dirt, holding a mason jar full of sweet tea, and I swear the way she looked at me you'd think I was a wild animal. We've had several complaints about your business, she said, and the HOA board has voted to recommend that you liquidate the property. I blinked. You're recommending I what? Sell your ranch? She repeated, like I was deaf or just a slow hick. It doesn't fit the long-term vision for this neighborhood. Now, I could have laughed, should have laughed, but instead, I took a sip of tea and just stared at her like she'd grown an extra head. I said, You do realize this ranch predates Willow Heights by about 50 years, right? She smiled, the condescending kind. Well, technically that may be true, but since the HOA acquired stewardship of this subdivision, any property within the bounds is subject to covenant regulations. I exhaled slowly, real slow, like my lungs needed a moment to calm down before my mouth said something I couldn't take back. You ever read the land plats, Marcy? I asked. She paused. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I don't think that's relevant. Oh, it's relevant. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded document I keep on me just in case someone gets ideas. You see this line here? I pointed. This is where your precious HOA stops. And this I turned, gesturing to the flower fields swaying in the golden light, bees buzzing like tiny symphonies over rows of bluebells and sunflowers, is all mine, including the subdivision your HOA sits on. Marcy laughed, out loud. Sir, that's absurd. Oh, honey, I grinned. You're standing on land leased from me. Half of her face froze, just one side twitched like a computer glitch. That's not possible. But it is, I said. You ever wonder why your HOA's annual lease agreement gets signed by someone named J. Callahan and mailed from a P.O. box in Amarillo? Her lips parted slightly. That's me, Joseph Callahan. I own the land the subdivision was built on. Every manicured lawn, every decorative mailbox, every fake Tuscany lamp post you installed, I let you build it here under a 30-year lease. And you've got 7 years left on it. She stumbled back like I'd slapped her. That can't be right. It's very right. I pulled out my phone and tapped to a folder titled Receipts. Want to see the original survey from 1978? Or maybe the renewal you all signed in 2018, when your board begged me not to raise rates after that sprinkler line disaster. She didn't say anything. Her clipboard started shaking. Somewhere in the distance, my sprinkler timer clicked and a line of water jets hissed into motion, cold, clear arcs spraying over marigolds and rosemary beds. The irony wasn't lost on me. That's when I noticed her eyes darting past me, toward the rows of homes on the hill. It hit me. She wasn't just here to harass Mesh, was here with a plan. Maybe she'd made promises to a developer. Maybe someone whispered about turning this place into luxury condos. Whatever it was, her little visit wasn't about clashing aesthetics. This was a land grab, and she had just lost all her cards. Marcy, I said, stepping a little closer. You ever threaten a landowner again, you better make damn sure you're not standing on his dirt while you do it. She opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. You can go now. Oh, and tell your board they're welcome to renew the lease early if they're nervous about their future. I'm reviewing all contracts next spring. Marcy left without another word. The crunch of her heels on my gravel path was the sweetest music I'd heard in years. And as she drove away, I couldn't help but laugh deep, from the gut, because this wasn't over. Oh no, this was just the beginning. The HOA tried to take my flower ranch. Instead, they're about to learn who really holds the deed to their pretty little kingdom. Typed, printed, and stamped with that HOA seal like it meant something in my world. Formal notice of noncompliance. It read at the top, big bold letters, like a threat. They cited everything from unauthorized agricultural development to unapproved fence coloration. Seriously, fence coloration. I sat on my porch swing, sipping coffee and shaking my head while my hound, Buck, snored at my feet. I'd seen power grabs before, but this was a toddler's tantrum dressed up like legal action. Still, I gave it a proper read, highlighted the real kicker near the bottom. Failure to comply will result in escalated legal proceedings, including potential injunctions or fines not to exceed $1,500 per infraction. I nearly spit my coffee. $1,500 per flower bed? You ever laugh so hard your ribs hurt? Because that's where I was, rocking back and forth, slapping my knee, waking Buck up from his nap. These people think they can find me on land I own, I said out loud, as if the sky needed to hear it. They must have slipped and hit their heads on one of them HOA bylaws. But that letter, it told me something important. They weren't backing down. And if there's one thing I learned from my dad, it's that when someone plays dirty, you don't just fight back. You outclass them. So I made a call. See, what Marcy and her clipboard cult didn't know was I've been leasing plots of this land to local vendors for years, quietly, respectfully. Organic honey from the Rutherfords, heirloom tomatoes from Javier down the road. But I also held back about 10 acres behind the old barn, saved for something special. That night, under a sky lit up with Texas stars, I finally started making calls on that something. Next morning, the rumble of trucks echoed down my driveway, flatbeds loaded with timber, gravel, solar panels, irrigation barrels. It was a caravan of progress. I waved at the workers and pointed them toward the rear fields, where an old oak marked the start of my untouched land. Marcy saw them too, apparently, because by noon, she was back, this time with backup. 2 men in matching polos with embroidered HOA logos on the chest, clipboards in hand like they were SWAT. "Mr. Callahan," Marcy shouted as she marched across my driveway again, her heels stabbing into the gravel like she was punishing the earth for not being concrete. "We have not approved construction of any kind on this property." "Then good thing I didn't ask," I said, not even turning from the ladder I was climbing to check solar panel brackets. "This isn't HOA land." "That's debatable," said one of the clipboard men, clearly the mouthpiece. "As members of the Oversight Committee, we have reason to believe these developments fall within the extended zone of HOA influence." "Extended zone?" I raised an eyebrow. "That a real thing or just something y'all made up on the ride over?" "It's pending," he replied flatly. I nearly lost it. "Pending? So you're enforcing rules you haven't even invented yet?" Marcy flushed red. "You're being deliberately difficult, Mr. Callahan." "No, ma'am," I said, hopping down from the ladder. "I'm being precise. You sent me a threat letter. Now I'm responding with activity that's entirely legal, on private land, using a lease you signed." The other clipboard guy stepped forward. "Then perhaps it's time to revisit that lease, sir. You're pushing boundaries." "Damn right I am," I said, walking them toward the exit. "But not the kind you can control. You've been pushing me too. Now it's my turn." Then I dropped the hammer. "Next week," I said casually. "This place opens to the public. Wildflower walks, honeybee education, community garden plots. Oh, and food trucks. All weekend long." Marcy stiffened. "You're opening it to the public?" I nodded. "Sure am. Gotta share the beauty, right? You'll be hearing from our lawyers." "I look forward to it," I said with a grin. "Tell em to bring sunscreen. My wildflower field gets real hot around noon." They left, muttering like a trio of angry mall cops. And that's when I noticed it, Mrs. Lanier, 3 houses up, standing behind her rose trellis, grinning. I tipped my hat, because folks were watching now, and the tides they were turning. What would you do if the HOA tried to seize your dream? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, sub, and share the stories just getting started. I never thought I'd see something like this in my quiet little neighborhood. One moment it was just another December evening. The air crisp, the faint smell of pine and cinnamon drifting from porches, and the next, chaos. Karen, the self-proclaimed HOA queen, had her hands around a nurse's neck, screaming about patriotism, Christmas trees, and God knows what else. Can you believe that? It all started with the tree. Just a damn tree. Emily, our neighbor, a nurse who'd been pulling 12-hour shifts back-to-back at the hospital during flu season, finally got a chance to decorate her porch. She hung a modest wreath, strung a few twinkling lights, and set a little Christmas tree right by her steps. Nothing crazy, nothing tacky. Honestly, it looked sweet, almost like something out of a Hallmark movie. But Karen, oh no, she saw it as a declaration of war. She marched up the sidewalk in her fleece robe and furry slippers, clutching her phone like it was a badge of authority, barking that the HOA had rules. No exterior trees allowed. She shrieked, her voice slicing through the night like a rusty blade. Emily just blinked at her, tired, still in scrubs, mask marks pressed into her cheeks. "Karen, it's Christmas. It's just a little tree. I don't think anyone." "Rules are rules." Karen cut her off, her voice sharp, the kind that makes dogs bark 2 blocks over. And then she went on this wild rant about tradition and real patriotism, yelling that people who didn't follow neighborhood codes were destroying America from the inside out. I mean, seriously, over a Christmas tree. By then, other neighbors had poked their heads out. Some were filming. You could hear murmurs, the whispers mixing with the faint crackle of Emily's string lights. A breeze made the ornaments clink against each other. Delicate, fragile, and somehow it felt like the sound was mocking Karen's hysteria. Then came the breaking point. Emily tried to gently move the tree closer to her porch, probably just to calm things down. But Karen lunged. Her hands shot out, wrapping around Emily's neck, pushing her back against the railing. Gasps broke out. Someone yelled, "Oh my God!" And I swear my heart just dropped. Emily choked, coughing, her hands pushing desperately at Karen's wrists. And Karen, her eyes wild, spit flying from her lips, screamed, "This is MY America. We don't break the rules here. You people think you can just do whatever you want." It was horrifying. The ornaments rattled louder now as Emily's back hit the railing, her coughs sharp and desperate. I could feel the cold air in my lungs tighten, my fists clenched, my body frozen between shock and rage. Someone shouted, "Call 911. Now." And a neighbor sprinted inside. And then, the twist. Emily, even as she gasped for air, suddenly managed to shove Karen back with all her strength. Karen stumbled, slipped on her own slippers and fell flat on the icy sidewalk with a thud so loud it made everyone flinch. The sound, like a sack of flour hitting concrete. For a moment, there was silence except for Emily's ragged breathing. Karen scrambled up, hair sticking out, face red as a beet. Instead of realizing what she'd just done, she doubled down. She puffed up her chest and started screaming about her constitutional rights and how the HOA was the last defense of American order. Her voice cracked, half crazed, half panicked. She jabbed a finger toward Emily, shouting, "This woman is a criminal. A criminal. Arrest her." Neighbors couldn't believe it. Someone muttered, "Is she serious right now?" While another neighbor recorded everything on their phone, shaking their head. The absurdity of it. Karen strangling someone and then playing the victim. It almost felt surreal, like a twisted parody of justice. That's when the sirens came. Red and blue lights washed over the street, cutting through the holiday glow. 2 officers stepped out, their heavy boots crunching against the frost, voices firm and commanding. Karen's face lit up like she'd been saved. She waved her arms, running toward them, shouting, "Officers! Thank God! Arrest her! She attacked me over an illegal tree. This is un-American." The officers exchanged looks, then turned to Emily, who still had red marks around her neck. Emily raised trembling fingers to her throat, her voice hoarse but steady. She tried to strangle me. Over a tree." You could see the cops' jaws tighten. One officer asked the crowd, "Did anyone witness this?" And oh, did they? Hands shot up. Phones were waved in the air. Neighbors started talking all at once. "We saw everything. She attacked her first. Check the videos." The officers didn't even hesitate. They turned to Karen. "Ma'am, put your hands behind your back." "What?" Karen's screech cut through the cold night, shrill and desperate. No, you don't understand. I'm the one protecting the neighborhood. I'm the patriot here." The officer repeated the command, firmer this time. "Hands behind your back. Now." Karen flailed, stumbling backward, her slippers sliding on the frosted concrete. "You can't do this. I know my rights. I pay your salaries. I'm an American citizen." She shouted every cliché in the book, her voice breaking with each line. The ornaments on Emily's tree twinkled silently behind her. as if mocking her downfall. When they finally cuffed her, she started screaming louder, calling everyone traitors, accusing Emily of being part of some conspiracy, swearing that the HOA bylaws were the real constitution. I almost laughed. It was so absurd. But then I looked at Emily, clutching her throat, trembling, eyes wet with tears, and the laughter died in me. It wasn't funny. It was terrifying. And yet, karma has a sharp bite. Days later, the whole thing blew up online. The neighbors' videos went viral. Headlines popped up. HOA Karen strangles nurse over Christmas tree. People tore her apart in the comments, calling her the Grinch on steroids, calling for lawsuits, mocking her patriot rants. The HOA itself tried to distance from her, releasing a statement like, "We do not condone violence, nor do HOA bylaws supersede the law." But the bitter cherry on top, Emily filed charges. And not just assault. She talked to a lawyer about suing the HOA, too, since Karen claimed she was acting as their representative. The HOA board panicked, whispering about liability, scrambling for cover. Suddenly Karen wasn't their fearless enforcer anymore. She was their biggest liability. I saw Karen once more after that. She was standing outside her house, arms crossed, glaring daggers at anyone who walked past. No slippers this time, no robe, just a cold, bitter stare, like the world had betrayed her. The lights on Emily's little Christmas tree still glowed across the street. And every time I looked at it, I couldn't help but think, that tree one. Funny, isn't it? How one small thing, a tree, a moment, a choice, can bring a self-proclaimed queen crashing down. The sound of her screaming still echoes in my ears. But so does the soft clink of those ornaments in the cold December wind. One sound was fury, the other, justice. And in the end, justice won. Thank you for sticking through this wild ride of a story. If you enjoyed this twisted HOA drama, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more lawsuit stories that hit harder than karma itself.